And I am going to go straight to my next guest, and that is the wonderful Jamarl Thomas. Hello,
Yeah.
Jamarl.
How's it going, my man? You doing okay?
I'm doing really, really well. I've had a great discussion with Tony Kevin, who's the former ambassador, Australian ambassador. And it's great to talk to you, Jamarl, because you've had me on your show a couple of times, and now I get to have you on my show
Yes.
and ask you the
I'm for
questions.
him.
Have you been watching the victory parade this morning,
I have been
Jamal, at all?
watching some of the scenes from that parade. China is what a difference from the American parade, right? It's like guys
Yeah.
just walking sloppily down the street. And here you have the women militia, you have the weapon systems. I mean, I think they even had a laser that was out there at one point, the airplanes and everything else. Yeah, they're showing off a lot of military hardware. Um, it's wild. And Japan is like, why does China keep doing it? It's like, dude, you killed 20 million Chinese. Put that in
Mm,
context, right? You invaded all of these Asian countries.
mm,
Yeah, there are things that are sacred.
mm,
And those things that are sacred on some level need to be, yes, beat into the ground. So
mm,
people understand this is the sacrifice that we gave and
mm,
have that bell reverberate, what, 50, 60, 70 years later?
mm,
Um, no, I understand exactly why they did that. That's you want that sacrifice to mean something,
mm,
and you don't want that sacrifice forgotten.
mm,
And this parade is kind of that way of showing strength in a sense to the world, or at the very least a portion of Chinese strength to the world. Um, but yeah, also commemorating the victory that was
mm,
made
mm.
in that Second World War, especially from the Chinese side against the Japanese. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And you've had some great discussions on your show with KJ No, and Kajar. So I think about the memories of the war as well.
Yes.
I think I was saying earlier on before Tony came on. I'm putting out a video today about a good book to read about a genuinely global perspective on World War II. So
Mhm.
it's fantastic. So I'll keen to chat to you about some of the big political issues of the day, Jamal, but also later on in the chat, I'm also keen to, because you've mentioned a couple of times in the interviews with me, the book,
Frank Herbert.
Frank Herbert's
Oh,
Dune,
Frank Herbert.
and
Oh,
how that gives you a sort of I guess set of stories, a mental framework to sort of understand the world. And I'm really keen to explore that because it's not a book I've ever read.
understand the word would be a bit strong, but
Yeah,
Dune, when you get into Herbert is fascinating because
yeah,
Herbert mixes this kind of spirituality with heavy handed political philosophy. Like when you see it on the movie screen, you don't see what's in their minds. And then the book,
yeah,
what the way they're thinking about this stuff is just fascinating. So yeah, I'm a
yeah,
sucker for
yeah.
Frank Herbert. I think the
We'll
man is
we'll
God.
get into that a little bit later. But the first thing I wanted to ask you, which obviously you've been professional enough not to sort of go on about while interviewing me on your show, is what's your story about it? How exactly you came to do the Jamal Thomas show? I mean, my
Oh,
story is I sort of got sort of shoved out of the public service and had to do something with my life. But what's your story about how you got onto the Jamal Thomas show in this
it's
weird
so
world of
uninteresting.
commenting on YouTube?
Yeah. So I was a software engineer for about a decade. And during the time I was a software engineer, towards the last time frame of it, Bernie Sanders in the US was running his race. And this was kind of around the exact same time of a political awakening that Sanders ran. And, you're hearing somebody espouse the stuff that you just fundamentally believe, right? People should have health care. Yeah, yeah. People, shouldn't die on the streets without health care, right? People should be able to go to school, have an education. Yes, that's a great idea. People should be able to go to school, have an education, especially when you compare that to the rest of the world and you get a country that seems just fundamentally backwards on this stuff. It's like you're telling a 17-year-old You want a future? Yes. Pay me $50,000. What? And you're putting that on the back of a child for the next 50, 60 years of life. That's outrageous. And then even going after Social Security checks if they don't necessarily pay it on time. It is outrageous. You're damaging fundamentally your country in a way that you're effectively for capitalistic greed for all intents and purposes. People should have a decent wage. If you work at a particular job, you should be able to pay for an apartment. Like very basic, elementary things that you found out that neither party agrees with. Even the party on supposed left, quote unquote, that told you for all of these years that they actually did believe in these things. They did not. Sanders was a lightning rod in regards to galvanizing elements that for the longest time told you didn't exist into the country. It was political awakening. It just woke me up. And I started the channel. Initially, it was just me being angry at some point. At some point, that leveled out into just being just me, like talking about some of anything. And I'm sorry, I have a cold.
Yeah.
And eventually it congealed itself into political commentary. From there, after doing the show for a while, I started getting invited onto a radio show. And after doing the radio show for a while, the company was like, hey, would you like a job? Yes, I would like a job. Thank you very much. And so for the next 5 years, I did radio in DC, 105.5 FM. And when the company went belly up, I eventually came back to the channel. But at that point, you had been doing radio for so long. I ended up sticking with this kind of radio format for the show. And so it became the Jamarl Thomas Morning Show. And I did the radio show in the way that I've always wanted to do the show. I got to be honest, I never wanted to co-host on the show. I've always wanted to just have my own show. And they were like, no, we need to have two people. We what if you get sick? What if something happens, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. Well, now I have it on my own. I'm doing it on my own. Booking guests, setting the content, all of that stuff. It's a lot of work, but it congealed into what it is today, the Jamarl Thomas Morning Show, this current iteration of it. It's been going well so far. Slow, but it's always too slow.
It's always too slow, but it's a great show, and you've been getting some fantastic guests, apart from myself, of course.
Thank you. Current company included, by the way. So, yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So can I ask you about the Bernie Sanders thing and that awakening? Because, I mean, I guess there's been this, he sort of got nominated and then got sort of shafted, and I guess to some degree it was also the sort of the second coming of the Obama optimism, maybe. Was that part of the thing with Bernie Sanders, or was it a whole different
it's
thing?
Slightly different, because the Obama optimism came in several different flavors. In one sense, it was, here's this black man that's a legitimate candidate, meaning one of the issues in American politics is this test of legitimacy. If you are African American, under normal circumstances, you almost reflexively vote Democrat. You vote Democrat because there's this thing in American politics of race, of keeping the monsters at bay. And what that means is the belief in the African American community that the monsters are in the other party, the Republican Party. On some respects, that's true, that it was a historical context that came along with that, where you have the Southern strategy where they effectively use heavy racism in order to win elections, in which case the African American community was like, those people are insane. We put a lot in with the Democrats. Now, this has gone on far too long because the Democrats are just as bad and leverage the black vote in a way where they fundamentally take it for granted. Meaning, if you're voting 90% for me, I don't have to do anything for you because you're voting 90% for me. Your vote is a captured audience. But put that to the side. When Obama ran, there was this question of legitimacy, credibility. Yes, he's African American, but Hillary Clinton is the credible candidate. So Hillary Clinton is the one that the African American community was going with. When Obama won Iowa, that was off. Horses were off to the races. And Obama was able to craft this narrative around himself I'm African American, coming from a country that's slavery. We are going to do something different, et cetera, et cetera. But Obama was the same random Democrat that was there prior. Like the difference between Bill Clinton, Obama is not radical in that sense. The difference between Obama and Joe Biden is not radical. Obama was more competent, infinitely brighter. Joe Biden was missing screws, several. So Obama had a level of competence that many of the other candidates didn't necessarily have. And he also had this narrative, this charisma about him that just oozed out of him in the way that he ran and the way that he carried it. But same rando Democrat. Sanders was different. Sanders was a true believer. Like when he gets up there and gets that fire-breathing speech, like these barn burner speeches of, we're going to fight the billionaires and the oligarchs and all of this other stuff. The problem is the problem of many leftists is that they tend to be weak. So Jeremy Corbyn, for example, again, good policies, too good of a man. Like, if that makes sense, I know this sounds horrible, but you're too good for this job. I'm sorry. You know, in which case they're going to hit him with all of this other stuff. He should have put a knife in Keir Starmer early on, as opposed to having Keir Starmer backstab him all the way through that race. I'm saying the same thing is true for Sanders. Sanders didn't have it in him to attack political opponents. He had to be pushed to do the very basic things of going after a political opponent. It just wasn't in him. And even his people around him was like, he just doesn't like doing it. It's like, dude, they're attacking you left and right. What are you doing? And he's still talking about the billionaires. That's nice. You got to throw a punch. You're in a boxing ring, right? And then he cheated him remorselessly. And he still turned around and said, you got to support Hillary Clinton. And of course, his supporters rebelled. So you got like riots at the DNC convention during that particular election. During the second coming, it was a little bit different. I mean, it's 4 years later. Sanders is older. He still didn't have it in him to throw a punch. He was the leading candidate in this particular race. The African-American community was effectively used against him because, again, he couldn't throw a punch. He couldn't make the basic arguments that you would make against somebody like Joe Biden. Hence, Joe Biden ended up winning in South Carolina and ends up the party circling the wagons around Biden to ensure that Sanders is isolated, and even going so far as to have one of the other candidates that you would think ostensibly was a quote unquote lefty turn around and attack Sanders remorselessly. And Sanders was like bewildered by the whole thing. And it's like, why are you bewildered? You're in a political sport. What are you doing? Like, it's aggravating to me, right? And to some of his supporters, because it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so he gets the mantle of a sheepdog. And many other people who back Sanders, I have a sweet spot for Sanders because A, he was my political awakening. By the same token, you know, you have a problem in the States. And part of the problem is both political parties are captured in the way that they function. Both political parties are war parties. Both political parties are just Zionist maniacs. Both political parties cater to the financial interests. And the ironic part about it is it was the Sanders run that made it that much more clear, because Sanders ran in the way the Democrats said that they were for decades. And you have this guy who embodies everything that you say you are, and you do everything in your power to put a knife in. So he was a political awakening for a lot of people. And honestly, you can almost say on some level, the downward turn of the Democratic Party when all of those people were alienated, tens, millions of people. It doesn't mean that they can't necessarily win a presidential race, depending upon who's on the other side. But the idea that you lose to Donald Trump is, you know, the bell tolls for thee in this case. So yeah, fascinating.
Where's that sort of political sentiment going now? Like, is there? I mean,
Nowhere.
you know, I guess there's all these deflated balloons, I guess, in American politics at the moment, aren't there? There's the MAGA deflated balloon. There's the war party deflated balloon because they can't win any wars, and then there's the and then there's the Bernie, the sort of, you know, the what do they call them? The squad or something?
The squad, yeah. Their disappointments too.
Yeah, that's a deflated balloon, and the Sanders is a deflated balloon, and you know, there's this, and you know, I'm just a very distant foreign observer. You know, there does seem to be a little bit of nastiness creeping into to things at the moment. Like, I mean, just for example, I heard a former Indian ambassador
Mhm.
to Washington actually talk on a Indian news channel and saying that he was warning is perhaps going too far, but cautioning people from South Asia in America to be a little bit wary about, I guess, racist attacks, violence, vilification, that sort of thing, in the context of the current dispute. So, which may be ungrounded, but I guess the fact that a former ambassador is saying something like that
Yeah.
is it's disturbing. I guess
It's so Trump he's an anomaly and he's not. The U.S. exerts power over its vassals in general, but is usually done with a velvet glove. Like, it's not, like, for example, where Joe Biden was like, we need Europe to stop buying Russian oil. We need Europe to stop doing this. And Europe will stop doing it, even though it's damaging Europe. I saw the reports today where the UK is like, they may need an IMF loan. France may need an IMF loan. All of these factories are closing in Germany and France. And it's like, you guys did that for the dignity of America? Really? That's pretty extreme that you're willing to put a knife in your liver for us, but thank you for that. But then at the exact same time, we would turn around where Macron says, hey, Joe Biden, you're selling us oil for 5 times the amount. Help a brother out. Joe Biden's like, I don't know, what do you want from me? It's like, meaning, yes, he's willing to exert power with a velvet glove. Trump gets rid of the pretense. He's the ghost face, the mask off, in the sense. He's like, why am I pretending with these people? You're vassals. You're going to act like it, period. Which is brutal in its effect. But it's still this kind of exertion of power in the way that America exerts power. You typically wouldn't get a lunatic representing the administration come out and scream on camera that this is Modi's war because these arrogant Indians care about their sovereignty. It's like, really? So you're taking issue with India because India decides to make a choice that's in India's best interest and not open up an agricultural sector that would damage and destroy their workforce. And they're being arrogant for caring about sovereignty. Sure, that's what it is. Like, these people are lunatics and the stuff that they say. Or Letnick, when he was like, Europe won't buy big, beautiful cows. And it's like, yeah, because you're injecting with all of this nonsense stuff, like these chemicals and whatnot. And Europe doesn't want that nonsense in their food. But they would say this stuff openly, brazenly. The China virus. Like, what are you seeding into your population when you're saying stuff like that? And you're targeting countries and groups and people that are in those countries. Yeah, people get edgy when you're hearing yourself being called out in a very particular way by people who don't seem to be wrapped too tight. I'm very skeptical that Americans are going to go around beating up Indians. I don't see it. But if you are Indian,
well, that's good news.
Yeah, but if you're Indian, you can imagine having a spotlight around you doesn't necessarily make you feel the most safe.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you? I noticed I watched your interview with Shoban. Is it last night? The Indian journalist who's based in Brazil.
Shoban Saxena. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry, my volume is down. Yeah, Shoban Saxena. I've known him for a few years. He's very good.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And he was really interesting in terms of his read of the situation. I guess, I mean, you've talked to a range of people now about the whole India-China Shanghai Cooperation Organization sort of meeting. What's your assessment of kind of where the waters are flowing in the new multipolar world?
So the U.S. functions, well, I would just say Trump in this. And no, the U.S., I'll go with the U.S. because, again, he's just a U.S. president, the way he functions. On this weird belief that it's the 1990s. For whatever reason, we're in a time capsule. And this unipolar moment, for whatever reason, got stuck in our minds as if this is normal. Will always be this way. We're Fukuyamas. This is the end of history. That's not the world. That's not reality. And, in this idea of exerting power, when Donald Trump comes in and the first thing he does, I'm going to have a tariff war against the world. Okay, that's pretty wild. This is kind of like Kramer getting beat up by all those kids in kindergarten because he thought he could do black belt. That's a Seinfeld reference. Kramer tells everybody, I'm the best at karate in my class. I just started. I'm, capturing the dragon. And you find out that he's in a karate class of children who are like 5, 6 years old, and he's just beating up all these kids.
Beating up little kids.
When they finally catch him outside, they beat the living devil out of him when they gang up on him. It is an amazing thing for a country representing 4% of the world to say, I'm terrifying the world, and you all are going to bend to my will.
Yeah.
And China tells them to effectively F off. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Some countries do. Europe bends the knee, but many of the other countries are like, dude, are you out of your mind? Yeah. Trump has it in his mind that we tell the world what to do, and they do. Period. And he ignores colonial history in many of these countries. He ignores this notion of sovereignty in many of these countries that these countries have to fight and bleed for. He ignores all of that stuff because in many respects, the American president doesn't care. We have objectives. And in this case, he wanted to accomplish the objective by effectively stealing money from various countries under this idea that they are stealing from us. They're taking advantage of America and all of this other nonsense. India, when he does this to Modi is shocked. Because Modi, there are plenty of pictures on the internet with Trump hugging Modi, saying, oh, this is such a great guy and everything else. And then all of a sudden, 50% tariffs. And Modi's like, what just happened? Trump tries to call him, and then he bashes him on Twitter, India's failing economy and all of this other stuff that he's effectively saying. India felt some kind of way about it. Modi felt some kind of way about it. They were burning effigies of Trump. Modi can't do what Trump wants. So it was a moot point, and Trump even trying to compel that behavior. A, there's a sovereignty issue, and B, he's not going to destroy his economy for the dignity of America. It's just not taking place. And so what did Modi do? He did what any rational person would do. Hey, I'm going to go when my bread is buttered. China, Russia, Putin, let's hold hands. Let's walk to Xi Jinping. Let's take this photo op that is not intentional at all. We just so happen to be here where the camera is here, catching both of us in this picture together that is going to go around the world. Like, it's a backfire. It's a massive screw up. You had the opportunity. Many people believe that India was the stalking horse in BRICS, that this was the gateway into influence on some level in BRICS, and India wanted to play both sides. They want to be unaligned. Not anymore. Keep in mind, India was the country that was more skeptical about de-dollarization. Is that still true? I don't know. But considering the conversations that they were having at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you can imagine that Modi is going to get much closer to China. Many of the issues that they had in regards to relationships around, let's say, border and those type of things are going to some level deprioritize, if not melt away. And BRICS is going to get closer. I mean, Lula is calling an emergency meeting for BRICS now. And what's wild about it, he had a representative that was already at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization talking to other world leaders, since there's an overlap. There's like a meshing between BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, especially among the primary members, Russia, India, China. And so what you're going to see is BRICS start to work in a coordinated fashion, because Donald Trump has been attacking BRICS directly. It's not a coincidence where it's, oh, you're trying to imprison Bolsonaro and he's a buddy of mine, so I'm going to put 50% sanctions on you, tariffs on you. How are you putting 50% tariffs on me for doing something that's a legal process in my country? Or are you doing that as a stalking horse just to go after Brazil because it's a part of BRICS? I'm going to put it on India because I can't put it on China, because we tried to do that and China effectively had us by the gonads. So I'm going to hit India. Okay, you can do that. I'm going to hit South Africa because #reasons, and I don't like the fact that you did this thing for Israel in regards to the International Criminal Court. It's not a coincidence that some of the most harshest tariffs have been resolved, or let's say reserved, for members of BRICS. Donald Trump has said as much, saying they're going to try to stop using the dollar. We can't stop letting them use the dollar. And it's like, what stage of capitalism is it where you're trying to force people to use your currency? Just outrageous. Like, the stuff that he's saying is so over the top in regards to this hegemonic control that he's trying to exert. But that's just it. It's one thing if you have a soft power way of engaging. This is a desperate country recognizing that powers, they're losing grip. And in trying to lose grip, they're trying to hold harder to the things to which they're losing. And in doing so, pushing countries further and further away. India is now further into the BRICS camp. They will come up with a coordinated strategy in regards to working together in tandem in order to deal with the way Donald Trump is effectively wielding sanctions or tariffs as a weapon. And to be honest, we don't even know if the tariffs are going to go through the Supreme Court, because they just got struck down in the appeals court, which means the U.S. may have to pay back $159 billion. Yeah. So that will be humiliating. Oh, yeah. That would be deeply humiliating.
Now, I've got this question from BP7891. I love internet handles. Do you think Trump is merging the anti-H1B1, which is the migration visas, I think, from memory, sentiments from his base with the issue of tariffs on India? Because, I mean, the sort of, the immigration, politics has been, Stephen Miller's influential, and it's been a big issue in the whole sort of Bannon sort of discourse, etc. as well. So what do you think about that?
It split MAGA down the middle. I mean, let's be honest. Donald Trump is not Make America Great again. He's not MAGA first. If he was, he would have much different policies than what he has effectively been doing around the globe. You wouldn't have this obedience to Israel. You wouldn't have this idea of boats going to Venezuela, trying to attack Venezuela in this kind of potential regime change attack. You wouldn't have attacked Iran. Iran is not doing anything to you. Meaning you would have ended the war. As you said, you were going to end the war. You would have released the Epstein files. Meaning there are plenty of things that Donald Trump would have done that Trump is fundamentally not doing. And when he's criticized on this, he's like, MAGA is whatever I want it to be. No, it's not. Make America great again. The H-1B1 visa is one of those things. You have Trump, who's a capitalist in his bones, and you have this issue of indentured servants that are effectively being bought from other countries to do jobs that Americans can do. But tech companies, in the same way that agricultural companies want, let's say, Mexicans or whoever from South America to do those jobs because they can do them cheaper. And they have very little, let's say, workers' rights in the context. This is that on a technological scale. And so these people have less rights. They could be kicked out of the country, and you pay them less as opposed to what you would pay a typical American. Now, the argument that Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, Trump, and these type of people will make is, well, yeah, but companies need those. And Americans aren't smart enough to do those jobs. And so, these people who are coming over work harder and everything else. Nonsense. And they would make that argument while gutting the Department of Education simultaneously, meaning Americans aren't smart enough. And we're going to gut the Department of Education. And we're going to, put less money into benefits that would benefit Americans and make them much more prepared for those industries. It's one thing if you say, we are going to increase the amount of money that are going to tech schools, technological development of those type of things in order to ensure that Americans are ready and fit for this technology. They're not doing that. I'm trying to make the point that there's a logical contradiction in this argument of we're bringing people over and we're doing things to make the situation worse for people who are in this country who need to get an education to be able to do those jobs. So the split was already there before the election even started. And it's funny, this hadn't been an issue that came up recently, but this was an issue that was huge just before the election and immediately after the election when the H-1B1 visa thing came up. But will it split the base? It's already split the base. If it comes up again, yes. But up to this point, it hasn't been a major issue recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed, what have we got here? Aziz saying H1B1s are crucial brain drains from developing nations, and I
Yes, they
guess
are.
this is something that, I mean, it's happening in India. There's discussion in India at the moment about, a lot of the diaspora, maybe they should come back. Some of the international students, maybe they should be educated at home. Some of the billionaires should, come back and spend their money at home, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And same deal's happening with China, I guess. They've got sick of, KJ knows, I think, spoken on your show about some of the harassment of some of the Chinese scientists suspected of being spies and all this sort of crap.
Yes.
And
But see, that's going to have consequences for America, though. I mean,
yeah,
part of the argument that America would make is, hey, bring us your poor huddle masses, bring us your tech students, bring us your, the brains of your countries, and maybe you'll like it, and maybe you will stay here. And because you stay here, you would add to the advancement in medical science, technological science, build businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, what happens when you start going after Chinese students or Indian students, and other people are like, hey, maybe I don't want to come here. Or even worse, America looks like a ghetto compared to some of the things that are in China. And you get many Chinese students who say, I prefer to stay here. Like, if you think of the top schools, many of those schools are in China. Many of the tech students are in China or Chinese. And you've effectively crafted a policy that alienates the very people that you need in order to actually build a new or better country, or at the very least maintain where you are as a country. No, I mean, all of these policies are disasters. It's almost like they're not thought through to any degree. It's very bizarre.
mm, yeah. It's just a wild show at the moment.
Yes.
The Donald Trump show or the American government show. I mean, I almost feel like, how people always say Putin, Putin for Russia kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel the whole world should make an agreement just to say Trump, Trump, Trump for the United States.
But that's more true for the US.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you look at Congress, right, you have Republicans who are effectively cowed. Like, they would not, I don't know if you saw this ass kissing ceremony that took place the other day.
Oh, I did. This is
The round
hilarious.
table is like, sir, you are such a great man. You smell amazing. Your hair is perfect. And then they go to the next person. Sir, we have a picture on our wall of you. Like, it's the weirdest thing in the world. They get to Wickoff. It's like, you have done more for world peace than any man alive. And you would think, like, at some point they'd be like, okay, dude, like, are y'all being serious right now? And Trump just laps it up. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's right.
Believing every word that they say out of their mouth, regardless of how ludicrous it is. You've done more for man than Jesus Christ. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, it's wild. But that's the way they act. That's what they've realized. This is what he likes. This is how we deal with him. This is how we save our jobs and whatnot. It's weird. That is more true today. Like this whole Putin, Trump. He is cowed and has had an ironclad grip on the Republican Party and very little political opposition. Like when you were talking about the Democrats, what Democrats? Like, where are they? What's their policy? What's their, what is their opposition to him? When he won this race, he fundamentally broke the Democratic Party. And at this point, he has ran, bestrode the globe as a Galactus, passing executive orders that get struck down. He doesn't seem to care. It's Trump. It's Trump's world right now. It really is.
Crazy stuff. Now, I did want to ask you about Dune. How do you say it? Dune?
Dune? Oh, the book, Dune?
The book.
Yeah, it's called Dune.
Yeah. Now, I on my Substack, I should do the proper YouTuber thing here and give myself a sort of promo. But on my Substack at jeffrich.substack.com, I did write a piece a couple of months ago of 100 books to read before it's too late, like 100 books to read before you die, kind of thing.
Dune is in that
and
list.
Dune was not on the list.
How was Dune not on the list?
I feel like I should apologize to you, but he got this particular post got an absolutely enormous response. Like, I guess people like list like this kind of thing. Like I think it's had like 70, 80,000 views or something like this, which
Yeah.
for Substack is just off the planet. And
I'm
but yeah,
ashamed that
Dune
yeah.
was not on the list. But I
I'm
got an awful
ashamed.
lot of suggestions, and I'm prepared to accept, making an amended list and putting Frank Herbert's Dune on the
Thank
list.
you.
But you got to make your case, Jamal.
All right. So Dune is a series, effectively, um, a political dynasties falling into its purposes, but in a galactic sense. And these families are royalties, but they are royalties over planets and spheres of influence in regards to a larger kingdom. And you ended up with a situation where the, let's say, galactic king, for lack of a better word, starts to get very dodgy about one of the other kingdoms, treaties, because they are, let's say, egalitarian, that people love them. They were developing a military that is very powerful. And the king was feeling concerned about it. So the king decides, I'm going to work with our Conans, and I'm going to give them, pretending as if I don't see this, for them to attack Arrakis. Or they eventually attack them on Dune, but let's say attack them on the world they call Dune. And in doing so, effectively saying, I'm giving the planet that belonged to our Conans to the Atreides, knowing full well that this was going to create all sorts of chaos and crisis among these two groups that were already warring groups. Both sides understood what they were doing. So both sides understood the political maneuvers that were taking place. The king is making a move on us. The king is doing this by giving us this land that belongs to them. They're going to be very pissed at us. We have to keep our guard up, et cetera, et cetera. They're explaining all the political philosophy and machinations that are taking place as this is happening. There's a spiritual element to this because Paul, the kid, has this. God, man, this is too much to explain. They got rid of machines because they ended up going to war with machines. And so human beings have developed capabilities. Some of those things are foresight, like prescience, as they call it.
Okay.
Some of those
So they're
things
sort of
are,
superhuman a little bit, sort of
yes,
thing, in a way.
kind
Yeah.
of. It's almost like
Yeah.
trained to peak human perfection
Yeah.
in the way that they need to because they need to.
Augmented intelligence sort of thing. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Because they
Yeah,
need to take the place of machines since thinking machines are illegal, like illegal to the point of death. All right, so Paul is very sensitive to this thing called spice. Spice is only produced on Dune. Spice allows longer life, intergalactic travel, but also prescience. The Bene Gesserit use it to keep in contact with their ancestors so they can go back through their ancestral memory, reverend mothers. Like, it's a complex story in this sense. They get to the planet. The king turns a blind eye, allows them to be attacked. They are overthrown. The dad is murdered, meaning the king of, what is his name? It'll come to him in a moment. He gets killed. Paul and the mom, Jessica, flee into the desert, which their lifespan is expected to be pretty much zero. You meet the Freemen, who put you in the mind of, let's say, Afghanistan or something like that in the Middle East. And they eventually get taken in after a lot of struggle, chaos, and everything else. All right. All throughout this book, they are dealing with these political situations, and they're explaining the political science associated with it all throughout the book, and for that matter, all throughout the series. Bene Gesserits and the way that they operate, the kingdoms and the way that they operate, why they're doing what they're doing, the political machinations in which they're using in order to try to accomplish the objectives that they're trying to accomplish. By the time you get to God Emperor Dune, which is my favorite one, it's a little weird, but it makes sense in the context of the storyline where Paul's son becomes a worm god and lives for thousands of years. And in doing so, he is almost perfect prescience, meaning he can pretty much see everything along timelines and everything else. He has that much spice running through his system. And in that book, it becomes heavy political philosophy. Like, for example, he makes this thing of saying, I don't allow anybody to develop technologically, because when countries develop technologically, or planets, smaller countries or smaller planets are able to take on larger countries because of the technological development. Think of Ansar Allah dealing with the US, much smaller country, very little to no military budget, and yet was able to stave off the United States attack and attempted invasion of Yemen. As technology developed, the smaller the technology, the more cheaper it gets. If it gets into the hands of smaller groups, those smaller groups can use it to fend off larger groups. Drone technology, for example, they were able to fly drones to hit Saudi Arabia, take down 5% of the world's oil. Again, smaller country, dirt poor, and yet has the capability of nearly hitting ships in the middle of the Red Sea. Not because they developed this massive military, but because technology has developed to the point where they can use it in a way that can harness it against larger forces and larger powers. He has all sorts of these things all throughout the book in the way that he explains the stuff. That is Frank Herbert. Like those books get philosophically dense in regards to political science. It's, I swear to you, it is. I didn't read that book until I got older, and I was blown away. The language, the way language is used, the imagery that is used. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
And like, is it just one book or is it like a series of books?
It's a series. You could stop when you get to his son, ignore the son. But when you get up to, for me, the first up to Worm God is probably the best. The Bene Gesserit one is interesting, Chapter House Dune, but first, I think Worm God is 4. The second one is okay. But even the way they open it, like part of the reason and rationale that he wrote those books and the way that he did is for this notion of denuding a savior. Effectively, he makes this argument that Richard Nixon was the best thing that could happen to America because it showed that the president was not infallible and can fail miserably. And that people, when you lift these people up as saviors, beware of what you get as a savior. I mean, Paul, he was, I can't think of the name of it right now. The Quizat Cataract, whatever, effectively a Jesus type figure. But he plunged the entire cosmos into war. I think billions of people died. I think it was like 90 billion people died over the course of like a year or a couple of years from the wars, the jihad that they were having across the galaxy. And so it's like, all right, you got your savior. This is what your savior did. And that was his point. Like, you've built this man up as a savior. You've had your hero's journey. And now that your hero has taken over, look at what your hero has done. He fundamentally failed at his task. Now, he didn't exactly fail. He just, with prescience, you had to work between the lines. So if I see a line of something that is catastrophe, and if all of the lines are catastrophe, and I say, okay, this one path, this golden path is the way that I have to take people. But people will suffer for 3,000 years for this golden path for me to ultimately save humanity. Well, they're going to think you're an ogre. They're going to think you're a tyrant. It's like, this is a horrible person. We need to kill this guy. This guy has lived too long, because they can't see that humanity would effectively die out through any other path. Now, argument can be made later on where they were like, well, how do you know there was a path? How do you know he wasn't forcing it by virtue of his will and what he was willing to make and the choices he was willing to make as opposed to other choices? Later on in the books, where you have thousands of years of reflection on what was taking place, they have a different point of view. Now, the book is fantastic. Three Body is the other one I would recommend.
Which one?
Three Body Problem, the Remembrance series by Cixin Liu.
Oh, the Three Body Problem.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I've watched the TV series, but I haven't read the book.
Oh, it doesn't touch it.
I should
be
do
a war breaker. It's so good.
Yeah.
It is scientific triumphalism.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's science raised to the level of excitement, like in a way that, God, man, it's hard to explain. I give you an example. They needed to. There's a scene, even in a television show, where they were like, "We have an idea. We want to send a spy into the Trisolar fleet. Okay, how do you want to do that? Well, we need to accelerate something to 1% the speed of light." And you think to yourself, okay, 1%, it's so small of an increment, but 1% the speed of light. Light moves at 300,000 kilometers per second squared. That's a fantastic speed, right? And so they say, okay, well, we can't afford to put any weight on it, because the moment that you put weight on it, it's going to kill the capability of doing it. And so they come up with an idea of creating a sail to use nuclear bombs to blow up, given it acceleration. If you time it right, you can keep accelerating it over and over and over again. And so they come up with this idea. And then they say, yeah, but the weight is still too much. And so they say, we'll send only a brain. And it's so chilling, right? And at one point, they make this point in the book of they use all of the nuclear weapons on Earth in order to accelerate one brain to 1% the speed of light. And you think to yourself, all of the human power and capability that we had at our disposal, we could only reach 1%. That is profound, right?
Yeah.
And it's trying to show the limits and how extreme reality is on some level in comparison to human might and human capability, the scale.
Yeah.
It's such a good book. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
brilliant.
I'm rambling.
Oh no, it's brilliant. And I guess one of the reasons I was interested is because I have this theory, I guess, or this idea that, or assumption that theories about the world, like realist international relations or whatever, are much less insightful than the kind of stories that are embedded in books like Dune or Free Body Problem or any. You could read Tolstoy's War and Peace or whatever, and that there's a kind of intelligence that's embedded in the narrative that captures the complexity of reality in a way that game theory or economics or just common sort of theories about the world don't really do. So I think there's a real truth to the way, in fact, that you can actually grasp in a way what's going on in the world by using the kind of narratives that are embedded in books like Dune or books like War and Peace, or like the Indian External Affairs Minister says he uses the stories of the Mahabharata to think about the way he conducts foreign policy.
I've become the destroyer of worlds. Oh, that is so hard. Oh man!
Well, I don't know if he thinks about that particular passage so much, but I guess
hardcore.
But
that is the hardest core thing, right?
The Bhagavad Gita at its heart is the decision of. I wondered about this when Vladimir Putin ordered the special military operation. He's like Arjuna facing the rival battle, and at this moment he hesitates and he says, is this the right thing to do? I don't really want to kill these people, and so what is the right thing to do in this moment? So I think there's a lot of truth in stories that is.
See, I grew up playing chess, and a lot of like political logic also gets boiled down into chess, cause and effect. What do you want to accomplish? How do you do it? And some of this stuff, you just don't have a way out. Like, especially if you look at it in the context of, if I don't do this, what happens? If I do this, what happens? Like, both has risk. And you think to yourself, how do I mitigate the risk in regards to what I'm doing? Meaning, if I stay here and let them expand into Ukraine, then what? If I attack with 150,000 people against like 400,000 people, then what? Is my military capable to accomplish this objective? Like, all of that stuff entails risk, but you're stuck with a realist logic. I mean, think of the way the West is looking at this. There are two schools of thought. Either they're looking at it through a cynical realist vision, or they're looking at it through just completely delusional point of view, where they're coming up with a noble lie. Russia wants to take over all of Europe. Okay, that's their noble lie. And now we need to infuse that with more myths. Well, Russia just wanted to take Ukraine because Russia wanted to take Ukraine. Putin's just a bad guy because Putin's a bad guy. Russia's a threat to all of Europe. Like, all of the stuff that they infuse into it. I often make the point that you lie to start wars. You tell the truth when you want to close it out. And they are going with this weird Western exceptionalism that is untethered to all reality to which they're looking at. I mean, you can look at China, you can look at Russia. Russia is growing faster than all of their countries. China, Jesus, some of those countries, places in China are gorgeous, high-speed rail. The world is leaving Europe by. And yet, Europe still has this idea that we are somehow superior. And it's almost as if either they're looking at it as if we acknowledge that we just fundamentally lost, that 1.7 million men are just up in smoke, that new territory is effectively taken to Russia, and a country that we consider Nigeria with snow has just put its foot in all of our collective asses. Either we accept that or we keep going. And they've decided we are willing to go into the last dead Ukrainian. The other idea is maybe they are cynical in their realistic vision, in the sense of saying, all right, we lost, but let Russia choke on it. So if they need to raise 2 million men, then let them raise 2 million men to occupy all of Ukraine. Our objective was to bog them down in a war. Fair enough. Them occupying Ukraine is going to bog them down. We're going to put in guerrilla fighters. They're going to be fighting a guerrilla war for 10 years. That's what we can do. Meaning we can't win it, but at the very least, we can make them pay to win it. I don't know which one it is, frankly. I trend towards the guerrilla war one, just because I think that level of delusion to me is too breathtaking for me to contemplate in the other sense. So I don't know. Which one? I'm curious. You've been in the machine. You've been in government for like 30-something years. And people in government usually have a different point of view than people outside of government, in my experience in interviews.
Yeah.
How do you see it? Are they that cynical that they would go that far?
Look, in my experience, sometimes you need to think of politicians not as the people who are conceiving and planning things, but they're like the guy at the racetrack, or the philanthropist, or the gambler who's saying, I'll put a bet on this guy, or this plan, or this plan, or this plan, and I'll kind of see how it kind of works out while hedging my bets, and always being prepared to shift to another plan. So like, for example, Macron, is notorious for making speeches about NATO being brain dead, and all this kind of stuff, and and like people like to mock him, but there's this famous philosopher Paul Ricoeur. And one of his final books was Memory, Forgetting, and History, something like that. And Emmanuel Macron was his research assistant on that book, and drafted significant parts of it. So he's an intelligent guy, and would have and has a deep sense of at least European history, all that kind of thing. So. I suspect there's an element of, with some of them, absolute, being caught in the delusion. But I also think with a lot of them that they must know that, that they would be being briefed on the fact that, things have not turned out to plan. Right. It's also possible that, some of the worst of the reality is sort of, they're shielded from it, but I suspect there's an element of because the information that goes to government leaders. There's so much information, so you have to be very controlled in the way in which you provide it, because it's just an overwhelming amount of information for any individual. Yeah. And then when that individual is nearly 80 and has an attention span of about 5 seconds and a lot of inherited prejudices and prefers to watch things on television anyhow, God knows how you actually convey important messages to him. I've just no idea in America's case. But I think in some of the European leaders' cases, there would be both some level of cynicism, but also just a pragmatic sense of, well, we've invested so much in this plan, we've got to sort of see how it plays out, but we probably also need to prepare behind the scenes for some other contingencies. But then with some of the more ideological sort of small states like the Estonias and the Latvias and the Lithuanias, etc., I think there is a genuine just crazy illusion sort of stuff. But I
She is
think the
nuts.
more serious players would would at least be behind the scenes preparing contingency plans for, okay, so what are we going to do in 6 months' time when all this goes belly up?
Yeah.
And I think one of those contingency plans from Europe's point of view is blame Donald Trump. And I think that to me that partly explains some of the, you know, will be with you to the end sort of tone of some of the European leaders. But but yeah, I might be wrong as well. They might all just be total cynical incompetence. But it's more than just the people you see on television. It's the whole network of people who are providing the advice, the intelligence services, the military, the bureaucracy, the political advisors, and the leading business people. It's and what then gets presented, in the 5-second slots on television is they all know that is a sort of a fictional version of events to some degree that they have to manage, but it's not the whole reality of their decision making process. So yeah. Oh, you're muted, Jamal. You're muted, Jamal.
Yeah, I was just saying it's so over the top. Like it's like they've created an unreality, like that they're functioning in. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole West is certainly in relationship to Russia, which is what partly I was talking about with the ambassador Tony Kevin before you came on. Was that they have just gone down this, and it's not just the elites; it's the broad public as well. People I speak to day to day who've just vested in this very fictional version of Russia, which is sort of coming on. In fact, I noticed that Strummer here is saying it's like the Truman Show, and there is a sense in which it's like the Truman Show. It's like this virtual reality of politics that is not really the way things are going.
It's so strange.
Yeah. Jamarl, it's been a great conversation. I'm getting up to 3:00 here in the afternoon. I think I'm going to have to go out and have a bit of a walk in the sunshine before it gets too late here in Melbourne. But thank you so much for joining me for the first time on the Burning Archive. Now you can both recommend my show and say you've been on it.
Yes. Anytime you want me, man. You've been a dedicated person coming on my show. I deeply appreciate it. You've been a great guest. And so, no, I do appreciate it. So thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inducting me into the Hall of Appreciation of Dune.
It's so much to try to explain. Like, it is very hard to give it a snapshot. But if you enjoy books, I can't say you would love it because who knows, right? It is a good book. It deserves a monument. Like, it's that good of a book. It's not even a book. It's like a masterpiece of sorts. It is so good. And I know some people are like, dude, I read that book. You're out of your mind. It's good. It is a different book than Three Body in the way that it's written. Like, Three Body is very flat, if that makes sense. Like, the language and the things like that are the concepts. That's the thing that gets it. Dune is the way it's written. Frank Herbert has a way of writing and the way of thinking that's just... Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Really good. I'll say
fantastic.
Try. You may hate it, but try it.
I will try it, Jamarl. Thank you so much. And I'll just go to the chat in a second, but thank you so much. And I guess I'll see you later tonight.
You have a good one, my man. Thank you for this.
Okay. Ciao, ciao.